Robert Pond put it quite well in his review of the show. I think it was for F News or something. It's online, Sandy has posted it. But he made a reference to bringing the absurd to the genuine. I believe that was the mission that was set out. I'm remembering a specific direction we were given throughout our rehearsal period of discovering right there on stage in the moment. It sounded a little crazy, but the reality of it was something that was necessary to do. And in the end project, I really see the validity to that direction because it led to bringing something that's rather absurd, bringing it to life in a way that an audience can be entertained by, whether they understood it or not. And that's kind of the feedback I keep getting. It's like I didn't quite get all of it, but I enjoyed it. People are feeling the necessity to see it again so they can catch all the little pieces that they missed the first time.
Stefan, I had taken part in one of your workshops at Out North, and I got the impression that may have been part of the audition process. And to assemble a cast like I saw in a somewhat non-traditional audition process, did you go through, and what were either Henry or Jeff taken back by the audition process?
It was, in fact, an audition and a workshop. They were put together. It was an idea I actually got from a theater company that was based in Boston a number of years ago and are now out in Western Mass. It's called the Pilgrim Theater Company. And they typically need to create ensemble-based shows, and what they'll do is offer free workshops in the type or style of theater that they're working in. And what they get out of offering the free workshops is twofold. One thing is that they get a cast, who are people who come through the workshop who seem to take to the material and seem appropriate for the casting purposes. The other thing they get is they get to try out ideas for a project that they're building. And so both of those were benefits. This was the first time that I decided to hold an audition in this particular way, and it really worked very well in both regards. I was able to test out certain theories about what might work to help generate material, and at the same time get a cast. And people who are willing to put in the time were also being considered to be in the show. So my hope was that it came out win-win for everybody. I know that there were some people who came to the workshop who had no particular interest in being cast, and in that regard for them, it was just a different way of getting access to the material, and I hope that for them, the experience of watching the show will be somewhat colored and enhanced by having been involved in those workshops.
I couldn't make the second day of workshop, so I scrambled through to cut in that time to make that first day, and I really am happy. I'm elated at that idea because, of course, it lent to me being cast and being a part of this project, which I really wanted to be from the first time I heard about it. And so I was really interested to get into the workshop, and it was really different. It was different from any process that I've been involved in. So naturally, for me, it was something that just drew me in from the beginning.
What did Jeff think about the rehearsal process?
The rehearsal process?
Well, rehearsal and the audition as well.
Well, I was very excited to hear that the audition process would be presented that way, because kind of when you finish your training, like in big cities, you have all these opportunities to study with a different company that's doing different work, whether it's, say, the Upright Citizens Brigade or, say, the city company. There's these opportunities for you to take more voice classes or to do more workshop-y kind of class. I myself took classes with the Neo-Futurists after I finished my training. Things that I'd already been studying or interested in, that were in the same vein. And I was very excited by the work we did in the workshop. I guess some of it, too, comes from first starting my training in New York. You get bombarded with all this information and ways of thinking that you're not used to. Like, even my first experience with the viewpoints, I was like, or Suzuki, I was like, this is very good for the physical body, but how will this training, go on if you stop practicing it? And in some ways, I got really frustrated. It was like some of my more conventional classmates, we were like, well, maybe this is the waste of our time. We should just be doing themes. And through that experience, I learned how much I was missing out by not opening myself to experiences that I couldn't understand, because the body and the mind will pick up things that you aren't conscious of. And there's something really to learning in that way when you're working with someone, that you trust. And I think if you're studying with someone, you've got to extend that trust to them. They might know something or have something to share that you might not yet be conscious of. I don't know if I should talk specifics on the workshop, but it so well paralleled the kind of work that I wanted to be doing, doing the impossible, taking a step away from what is known and into the unknown. So it was a very exciting process, the audition process as well as the rehearsal process, because I did feel like we were taking a step away from, for me, what is comfortable, into the unknown.
If you're just tuning in, and if you have been listening, you are listening to Art Watch on Out North Art House Radio. I'm your host, Thomas Higgins, and today we are hearing from Stefan Golec, director of Ceranos Theater's production of Bob Rauschenberg America, with a couple of cast members with us today on the phone, Henry Weaver and Jeff Aldridge. Bob Rauschenberg America will run Thursday through Sunday until July 15th at Ceranos. Showtimes are 7 p.m., except for Sunday, which is at 3 p.m. Why should Anchorage come see this performance? Maybe I should just call it a spectacle.
Well, I think spectacle is a great name. I'm definitely one of those people who doesn't feel that anybody should do anything in particular, and certainly wouldn't want anybody to feel as if it's medicine. But I can attest to what it is that you might get out of coming to see the performance. I guess it was Gertrude Stein who at one point remarked about theater, and this is back in the days before film and certainly the internet. She was often frustrated because she was either ahead of what she was seeing or she was behind what was being seen. And this relates very specifically to the task that playwrights face when they write theater, which is they need to be caretakers for people's time in real time. For example, if you're reading a novel, you can certainly set it aside when your interest wanders somewhere else, or perhaps there's a 2-chapter circumlocution that goes into gold mining in Peru or something like this, and you can skip that part if you want to. You can essentially control your experience. And in the theater, you really can't control your experience. Other people are controlling it for you. And I think that what Chuck Mee has done and what I have attempted to embrace in Bob Rauschenberg America is two things that will allow people to control their own experience. One of them is the principle of simultaneity, which is that rather than the theatrical event being just a chain of one event to the next, there's actually several different things going on at the same time that have to do with story, have to do with discovery, have to do with visual imagery, have to do with oral imagery, and so that there's a path that the viewer can select for themselves through that. The other part of it is a continual sense of delighted surprise. We've spoken already today about non-linear work, but I don't think that I would really emphasize so much the fact that this is non-linear. I think what's at issue more is that you get delight out of juxtaposition of event to event, or a piece of music to visual image. And in actual fact, the language and dialogue that comes through on the scenes, for the most part, is quite heartfelt and simple. It was one of our other cast members, Susan Metcalf, who articulated to me at one point that she thought what was most wonderful about the play was that it was an hour of people doing nothing but speaking the truth. And I think that's quite insightful. Another metaphor that I've used a lot is a restaurateur or a chef at a French restaurant would use, which is the idea of an amuse-bouche, which is this kind of little taste things, almost the French version of tapas. Literally translated, what it means is to amuse your mouth, right? These little tiny, strange explosions of flavor that you wouldn't experience in any other particular way. And my hope is that for those who come, they come with an idea that they want their experience amused. They're going to have a really delightful time.
Capers and fennelhead ferns.
Sorry, I just didn't hear that part again.
Capers and fennelhead ferns.
Yes, there you go. Right.
That's what came to my mind when you said things that explosions in your mouth. That was like, whoa, how did that happen from just those few little items?
Exactly. It's really a juxtaposition of things. There's one way of cataloging off foods in the world. Foods that go with garlic or the foods that go with chocolate. And you could think to yourself, well, there's very few that do both of those things. Well, who's the chef who's going to make garlic chocolate? That's the juxtaposition that's going to come out there.
Simpsons did it.
Yeah.